Hello and welcome to episode 271 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR, and we are coming off of an Island of Moreau kind of week. Yes, that's right. This Foster Moreau, Darren Waller situation that came up Sunday was one of the more interesting things we've seen all season. I think it was unique because, well, for a few reasons. A, the Waller injury news did not break until Saturday night, and it just out of the blue. I mean, we had no warning this was coming whatsoever. B, the tight end position, always weak. C, Eagles are best attacked with both the pass game, and they're both best attacked with the pass game over the middle. And D, Moreau was actually an interesting pass catching prospect coming out of college in 2019. And most importantly, finally, this was the late game, and we had no real news. Like no hard news on whether Waller would play. No one really knew if Darren Waller would play through this ankle injury or not. Nothing concrete, at least. But if you read the Adam Schefter report closely, shout out to friend of the show, Schefter, my bookshelf vice president now. I am the king. But anyways, if you followed Adam Schefter's report closely, he made it sound pretty skeptical. So I thought it was like 60-40 that Waller would sit, 65-35 that Waller would sit. So look, I mean, come on, there's nothing that gets me to a full 3.9 like playing $2,500 tight ends on DraftKings.com in cash. I fucking love it. Like the floor ceiling combo on the mid-range guys is so overrated at tight end. Although the fake tight ends like Mike Gesicki and Kyle Pitts, are changing that some, right? Like i.e. guys listed as tight end, Gesicki and Pitts, but essentially playing wide receiver by lining up slot or wide on almost all their snaps. But yeah, especially in cash, getting a 2,500 tight end who is reasonable just opens up so much. So I went for it. I put in Moreau. I had a swap plan in place if Waller ended up active. He didn't. The Island played every single snap. He went 661 on 6 targets. Rest is history. Cash is one thing, but in GPP, as always, late news is more valuable. If the Darren Waller news became official on Friday about his ankle, that he was out, Moreau is probably like 35% in GPPs. If it comes out Sunday morning, he's probably around 15 to 20%. But since the Darren Waller news wasn't official until 2:45 p.m. Eastern Sunday, he's only 5% in the $20 Millie Maker. I'm actually shocked that even in high stakes, in the 4K, Foster Moreau was only 4.4% owned. Just a clear reminder that if you're considering a swap and it's close, understand the leverage that you get from late news. Okay, I want to touch on a couple other things here today, but first need to remind everyone the NBA season is underway. It's tough for me to convey how overwhelmingly impossible it is to try to play NBA DFS or bet NBA props without a literal team of people working 24/7 on news and projections. That's what we have, led by Dink and Gallagher, but we have people in all time zones all over the world. There are 2 separate products, one for DFS and one for props. You can bundle them both for the cheapest price. Highly recommend you check it out. Props are a smash so far as expected. A couple other things for cash from week 7 I wanted to touch on. There were 3 really, really strong but expensive plays on DraftKings. It was pretty clear, right? Derrick Henry home against the Chiefs, one of the league's worst defenses. Davante Adams home against Washington football team pass funnel. Cooper Kupp, he of the slate-breaking breakfast narrative against the Lions. I never really considered playing Davante Adams in cash. I think the way the Packers ideally want to play isn't great for ceiling unless they're pushed. But I'd be lying if I said I thought Kupp was like a slam dunk over the big dog. Like typically, I think running back in cash when it's close is better than wide receiver. Obviously, we can more tightly project a share of a team's running back carries than we can a share of a team's targets in 1 week samples. Like, we know Derrick Henry is going to handle 90+% of the Titans' running back carries. But with a wide receiver, I mean, in any week, we could see Tunyon or Lazard or Aaron Jones or MVS when he gets back, or any of those guys could steal a bunch of work in a 1-game sample. The same, at least in theory, on the Cooper Kupp stuff could be said about Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, Van Jefferson, D. Hendo, etc. So yeah, I almost played a Derrick Henry team, and that would have been torture because as much of an outlier as Derrick Henry has been in terms of efficiency, Cooper Kupp's role as a wide receiver is really difficult to wrap our heads around. Like, I don't need to go into it. I've talked about it plenty all year, but the dude has broken 5 slates already this year. It's just insane. So yeah, I mean, shout out to Leone and Mark and our projections team. We had Kupp for 24.9 DraftKings points, Henry for 24.0, Adams for 23.5, and Kupp was the cheapest by a meaningful amount, and we had him for the most points. So, ended up going with the Kupp team, and it worked out. Last thing I wanted to comment on this situation is what's going on with Robbie Anderson, Calvin Ridley, and T. Higgins. Like, what's going on with their yards per target is really unique. You don't see this kind of ineptitude from guys who are talented, or at least we think are very talented, guys playing with reasonable or above average quarterbacks for the most part. I played Ridley in cash in week 7. I played Robbie on a GPP team. I played T. Higgins on 2 GPP teams. They combined for 34 targets at really reasonable salaries. And so, you could go full-blown team, watch the tape. You could try to rationalize all this, or you could just take the longest view in the room. Shout out Sam Hinkie. Take the longest view in the room and say this stuff will normalize over time. I think the one that obviously I'm most worried about is Robbie Anderson. Like, doesn't have the same talent as Ridley and T, I don't think. And obviously the quarterback play is significantly worse. But on Ridley and T, I mean, yeah, their ADOTs are lower than it's been. And players around them are playing really well, but I'll likely ride it out on Ridley and T, especially if other people are getting off them. Okay, let's get to tournaments. And your humble king GPP bro was actually winning the juke, the $400 buy-in on DraftKings around, I don't know, like in the second quarter of the late games. I had DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders still going. Obviously, once Miles Sanders went down, I was dead. Also did not have Kupp, so I was probably dead anyways, finished 14th, but I was looking back at the team, and I'm not sure it was really all that good, to be honest. I played a Tua Tagovailoa double. I thought Tua was actually okay for cash, given how aggressive Miami has been with their pass game, how fast both teams are playing. But anyway, these Tua doubles got really steamed in small field stuff on DraftKings. Tua was 13% in the juke, Waddle 22%, Gesicki 22%. Not great. Then I had already filled the tight end spot. Thought double tight end was okay on DraftKings this week, and maybe I should have thought about it more, but I ended up going with Ridley because I just loved Ridley, and my God, Calvin Ridley ends up 31%, so I have Tua 13%, Waddle 22%, Gesicki 22%, Ridley 31%. I mean, just a disaster. And I know what you're thinking, Adam, why does it matter? If it hits, it hits. Right, but at these ownership percentages, what do I win when I win? Me and 25 to 30% of the field also wins. That doesn't really get me any money. So if that many people are playing this and it fails and I have something else, well, then I have something going. Rest of the team I had, though, with the Tua double, I actually really liked. I had Kelsey, A.J. Brown, mini stack at reasonable ownership, Giants D to get off the Arizona chalk and stay cheap, and then Swift as a one-off. Swift was just 12% in this. The way he's being used just creates such an outrageous ceiling. Like, he's on pace for 100 catches, and he has 8 carries from inside the 10-yard line already. Like, when you can do that at the running back position, I mean, it's just wild. Absolutely wild. So, just a smash DeAndre Swift this year. Okay, got to get to the listener questions, but I do want to say one thing about FanDuel. If you go back to episode 260, I talked through my thoughts on FanDuel tournaments, and specifically how Tom Brady and the Bucs set up on that format. I mean, obviously, no one was listening, as we know. I played Brady, Evans, Godwin in the 4-4-4 buy-in, got Brady 4%, Mike Evans 10%. Godwin was massive chalk at 34%. But I also got Damian Harris in there at 11. Damian Harris at 11, home against the Jets, Ramondre inactive. All I'm thinking about is TDs. Like, in that format, love Damian Harris. Had Travis Kelce and DeHendo and Mooney in there, so I only got, a little bit over a min cash. But yeah, like, FanDuel is the place for getting unquestionably good plays at low ownership. Like, because everyone is so cheap there, other than Derrick Henry, of course. But that, on FanDuel, you can get stars, legit stars, like Mike Evans without Antonio Brown, that other people just aren't on. All right, I've talked long enough. It is time for everyone's favorite portion of the program, the listener questions. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. All right. Thank you to everyone for the questions. Going to do 8 today. Question 1 comes from Adam Gallagher. He says, how does the overall lifestyle/personality traits of a GPP bro differ than that of someone who plays cash? Detail, please. Yeah, so there's obviously some very, very sophisticated GPP players now. But, if you go back to the beginning of poker, I mean, the real players, the real action, the highest stakes, the biggest swings, the best players, the sharpest players, it was all in cash games. We used to call the poker tournament idiots boomers, not like old people boomers, but just idiots who saw poker on TV. They're part of the boom, and now they think they're some tournament pro. They show up with the big, thick sunglasses and staring down people for a minute before each decision, like they're going to pick up some live tell, whining about bad beats, criticizing other people's play. And I think at the early days of DFS, there were certainly some similarities there. I mean, let's be honest, most people, 99% of people want to put up a little bit of money with some chance, albeit a very small one, to win a lot. So look, I made fun of the boomers. I made fun of the GPP bros. They shave their chests. They smash natty ices against their forehead. They go to the clubs. They are only a 4v4 away from winning the Millie Maker each week. They like to dance. They like to talk about how rich they are. But in all honesty, I wish I had focused on tournaments. Like they didn't know it, but they probably had it right. Like early on in poker, when the strategy or like the winning strategy was whoever was the most aggressive was winning. I mean, that was the time to take on the higher upside stuff. Yeah, it's tilting to play for 3 days and only 2x, but to get the 100x, 200x returns, like obviously makes sense. So yeah, I've said a lot of bad stuff about poker tournament bros and DFS GPP bros in my life, but I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Question 2 from Rudy. He says, DraftKings has just announced that they're leaving Australia in mid-November and will be geo-locked from playing. Would be great if you could give us now DraftKings list Aussies a solo pod shout out. Damn, man, I hadn't heard that, Rudy. That's brutal. There are some very, very good players in Australia too. I know of a couple. Sorry to hear that, man. I don't know. I've actually never been to Australia. I really want to go though. I did go to New Zealand for 10 days a long time ago. That was awesome. I actually went skydiving there in Queenstown, which was a whole other story. But I'd really like to go to Australia, man. I'd actually love to do a Aussie Millions poker / Australian Open tennis trip. And it's if I didn't have the unprotected intercourse, 6.5 years ago, and then have the unprotected intercourse again 3.75 years ago, I'd definitely do that trip. But alas, I had the sex. So here I am preparing for Disney on Ice and Legoland and, anyways. I got off topic here, but yeah, sorry for your loss here, Rudy. I'm sure there's some DFS opportunity there for an entrepreneur, maybe. I don't know about the legal issues, but hopefully you guys will get DFS back in your life soon. Question 3 from Michael. He says, I saw that in a couple of GPP winning lineups, people had paid up for defense. I understand that might make your lineup more unique, but with the variability off defensive scoring, does that seem optimal? I'm leaning on your new status as a GPP bro. Yeah, that's actually King GPP bro to you, Michael. But yeah, basically on defense for GPPs, like the data is very, very clear. Everyone is horrible at picking defense. There is almost no correlation between ownership and fantasy points for defense. There is also very weak correlation between projection and fantasy points. In other words, there's a ton of randomness, kickoff returns for touchdowns, punt returns for touchdowns, whether a play is just an interception or an interception with a pick six. Like that's so random. So paying up to be contrarian for a good defense, I think is okay. But man, once you get above 3,500 on DraftKings, it's really hard to find any base value. Like if you pay 4K for a defense and it does really well, it gets 10 or 12. I mean, that's not even good enough at 4K. The opportunity cost that you've lost by sacrificing a 6K wide receiver for a 4K wide receiver is just so much. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Question 4 from Ethan. He says, how do you deal with the whining? You mention it all the time, but fuck, grown men on Twitter complaining that a player didn't perform or that the coaches are bad. I mean, should I mute or unfollow? I love fantasy, but this borderline makes me ashamed to say I play the same game. Yeah, I hear you, Ethan. I mean, there's nothing I hate more than whining. I mean, I can't take the whining. My Top Shot moments went down in value by 90%. Wah. Adam, Matt Nagy is an idiot. Wah. Adam, Mike Davis sucks. Wah. I mean, you guys know my motto about everything. Zero excuses. Play like a champion. Shout out to Rudy. I think people just need to change the way they look at results, really in all forms of life, but definitely in fantasy football. Instead of saying, wow, Robbie Anderson sucks, or Mike Davis sucks, or I blame Calvin Ridley for my loss. It's instead, I made a bad projection on Robbie Anderson. I made a bad projection on Ridley. Like, our job isn't to coach the team or play in the game. It's to predict what will happen. Like criticizing what coaches or players are doing wrong is such a waste of time. And I fall into the trap too, believe me. But it's just so dumb. Like, that's not our job. That's not how we make money. We just need to look in the mirror, I think. Question 5 from Luke. He said, you've mentioned that the lines you get for player props are often gone. And if you want them early, you have to be in the Discord. If you found out that sites, the books, were in your Discord acting off of you rather than actual money coming in, could you stop that? Yeah, so for those guys who don't know, Luke is referring to the player prop system we have been trying out for both NFL and NBA. Basically, we find a prop that we want to bet, we alert the prop channel in the subscriber only Discord, and then we release it. And yes, lines move very fast and often drastically. I don't think any sites have like moles in the Discord. I do think they have something coded in their system that says if a prop gets X amount of dollars on one side, change line or remove line and reevaluate. It's just automated, most likely. Still, typically probably have like 1 to 3 minutes before it moves, at least depending on the site. One thing I'd say about it though is, and I've been pleasantly surprised by limits and increasing liquidity in props. Like, there seems to be, at least on some props, like decent liquidity. Like, we took Derrick Henry under 149.5 rush plus receiving yards early last week. I think, Wednesday or Thursday. It went down after we bet it, but then there was buyback and I saw it get up to 153.5 or so, which to me was a big sign that like there was public money on Derrick Henry overs. I mean, people obviously want to bet Derrick Henry overs. So as the prop market matures, that's a good sign, get some public money in there blasting on overs and that's good. Question 6 from Ben. When are we going to decide as a nation that toilet paper is a ridiculous and inefficient way to clean our asses? Bidets are a standard bathroom item in 80% of the world. I get some version of this question like 5 times a season. It's crazy. I didn't know so many people had like the cleaning of their asshole on their mind. But yeah, I mean, of course, Ben is right. When you wipe, you're really just smearing. You're not actually cleaning. I've never actually personally used a bidet, but I'm super intrigued. I definitely try it. For now, though, I have a pretty good routine going. I literally only defecate right before I'm about to go in the shower, period. And if something comes up, something unexpected, and I have to defecate in a spot where I wasn't planning a shower, well, I drop everything and I shower, easy game. Question 7 from TikTok Gloom. He says, I'm 33 years old, 265 pounds, 6 feet tall. And I guarantee with a wide receiver trainer, I will make an NFL practice squad next season. The entire process will be filmed. Will you help? I mean, come on, bro. This is absurd. I assume you're joking. Obviously I won't help regardless. But anytime people come at me with absurd brags, my response is always the same. Let's bet on it. It's really the only way to live. There's nothing better than someone, talking a bunch of shit, someone super arrogant, talking a lot, and then just betting on it. And there's nothing better than athletic bets. Obviously I've done all the tennis ones. I've done a bunch of others, the 6, 12, 18, 24 that Bales did, the push-ups, the fitness ones. So yeah, man, look, I'll give you some motivation. I'm happy to bet against you sight unseen. I've never seen you. I've never seen a picture. But just if you're telling the truth about what you said about your age and stats, happy to bet against you. All right. Question 8. Last question we're going to do today comes from the one and only. He says, are you an ass or boob man? And why is ass the right answer? Obviously, anyone can be gifted with a nice rack, but the tight ass cheeks of America seem to disappear after one passes their early 20s. Asking from a mid-30s cash grinder bro. I'll hang up and listen. Yeah. I thought about answering this, and then I started thinking, like, how have they not tried to cancel me yet? I feel like I've pushed the line pretty far at times, and I'm not going to push it on this one. I don't need to get canceled. So good question, though, one and only. Appreciate it. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the Solo Pod. We'll be back later tonight with Silva to go team by team through week 7 and look ahead to week 8. If you have not tried out ETR yet, reminder, we do have weekly and monthly options now available on the subscribe page. For Producer Luke, for my new sign, for Jerry, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.